For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble, part 2 of my story from last week. Let me stop right now. If you did not listen to last week's episode, you want to go back and listen to that, because the rest of this story today is not going to make sense unless you've listened to it. Now, I can give you a very quick recap, but the full story's last week, so just go back and listen to that one. All right. So I'm going to finish the story, fingers crossed, because it's already a long story, but it was just that entertaining of a situation that we're going on a two-parter, and it's going to continue on the Scribble right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here on The Scribble. So talking about a nightmare job. Well, it was more of a nightmare situation, not necessarily the job. But as I started to tell you in the last show, I was hired at a call center that I did not realize was a call center. The website was sort of vague. It talked about how they, fundraise for nonprofits, and the job ad itself was listed under public relations, so it was not listed as customer service or anything like that. It sounded like it was a corporate job. And so a PR corporate job is obviously what my training is, because I majored in journalism and, communications degree and things like that. So when I was just starting out my broadcast and publishing career, I needed some money. Like all entrepreneurs are optimistic. All entrepreneurs think the money's going to start coming in, as soon as you design your logo, as soon as you come up with a name, as soon as you flick on the lights in the morning. That's just not the reality. And I learned that, not necessarily the hard way, but definitely, you have to kind of put your ego aside and say, all right, well, I can still do this on the side, and I need to take a job in the meantime. And so that's where I was in life. I had just started out. I wasn't running this company that owns, that produced syndicated radio shows for, 15, 20 years, publishing best-selling books, 2 very successful e-commerce stores, managing, my husband's modeling career, things like that. I wasn't at that point in life. So I work a couple of weeks in this call center. Now, like I was saying in the last show, I came in on day one thinking that I was going to be starting my PR role, and I come into a room, and I'm not being racist, I'm not being, it was a room full of immigrants, because we went around the room and told our stories, and all of them were very new to Canada. And so I just kind of thought, there was something odd about it. So I meet the CEO, Jocelyn. I was told if Jocelyn loves you that you're set. And so I meet her, and she was nice to talk to. And I did a week of training in the call center. because they'd said to me, we need you to kind of understand the campaigns and how things go. And I said, no, that makes sense. I'm new here. I want to find out I will work on the front lines and see how things go. And I can better understand the role and, the needs of the organization. So I do the week of training in the call center. And then when I was leaving that week, I said, okay, so, 8 o'clock or 8:30 on Monday, when do I come back? And the HR woman said to me, well, did you check the schedule? And I said, no, what do you mean? Like, why would I do that? I was a call center employee. Really? Now, again, like I said, there was nothing in the interview that made it seem like I'm going to be speaking on the phone to donors and like wearing a headset, and there was nothing. It was very much PR. We're representing the organization and whatever. So I was duped. And being a journalist, I asked a lot of questions, right? So I don't know if that was just the plan, like to trick people. And, you don't want to, if people see that it's a call center job, they might go and say, well, that's not for me. But if you make it sound like it's a PR job, somebody like me is going to bite, right? We'll jump on that. So I worked I was an actual call taker for a few weeks. And I eventually, came back downstairs to the main office, like to the HR. And I said, that's great, but this is not what I do. This is not, I feel like this was sort of a bait and switch where, I apply for something the way it's described one way. Now here's the thing. I was not doing anything different than what was advertised. They just really glossed it up in the description, right? So do you know what I'm saying? Like, so if there's no opportunity to do like actual PR, meaning like a public relations representative, not a customer service representative on a phone, then I kind of don't want to be here. So because I kind of gave this ultimatum, now here's the thing. I also needed money too. So, there was nothing stopping me from going and getting another job at some point, but I needed the money, like now. But I was just so, I don't know, I just felt so like betrayed, felt so duped, almost scammed. And like I said in the last show, I wasn't making minimum wage. So it's not like I was just taking, a low end. I really thought that this was going to be something different. So I go and I say, like, I'm not a call taker. Sorry. I'm a journalism major. I'm doing broadcasting now. So this is not my thing. Sorry. So they came back to me after I didn't quite quit, but I just kind of left unimpressed and made them know that. So I come back on Monday or whatever day it was, and they offered me, would you like to be a supervisor? And I said, doing what? And they said, well, I can't remember the woman's name, but she was a supervisor, where she sits at the end of the row of the desks. And I said, oh, okay. Yeah, you basically, you're kind of like managing the team. You're not taking calls. You're just overseeing everybody. If somebody wants to talk to a manager, then you jump in. That's how long ago this was. Now all those call center people work from home, right? They don't even have a manager in the same room as them. They have to like wait in a chat queue, just like, a person calling in. This was an actual physical call center. We were all in the same room together. And so I said, well, like, what's the opportunity? It better be a bump in pay because, And they said yes. There, it was a pay increase. I don't remember what it was, but I was already being paid, decently for when I started. So when I say that it was a nightmare job, it was a nightmare job for other people. So for those immigrants, for those people who this was their first job in Canada, I feel bad for them now. I did not in the moment, but I do now because, time has passed and I've thought about it. And so it was such a shitty work environment. Let me tell you what it was like to be an actual call center employee. So the week of training, you go down to the basement, which had stains all over the carpet. It was freezing down there. The chairs, like there was no matching chairs. It was all, some office chairs. None of them had arms. They had to be all taken off because apparently they scraped the desks. So you didn't have arms on your chairs. And they were all mismatched chairs anyway. You could not have a drink. It basically had to be like a sippy cup. It had to be a spill-proof lid. Like you couldn't, just a regular like coffee mug. No, not allowed. You had to wear on, I think it was Wednesday, and definitely on Friday. They had these god-awful shirts that said CEO, Customer Experience Officer. Giant letters, CEO on the front, and then on the back had their credo or like their, I will always put customers first. I will always, like that kind of a thing. And they were horrible. There was like red, orange. The shirts were like super bright, like glow in the dark practically. You had to wear that on Wednesdays and Fridays. Fridays you could wear jeans with your CEO shirt. But you're in a locked call center. Like you're behind, I don't know how many different locked sets of doors. You don't see the public. The public doesn't see you. But you've got to wear this like stupid god-awful team uniform. If you did not remember your shirt on Wednesday, you could buy another one for $10, or you would be sent home to go and get your shirt and come back to work your shift. So let's put it this way. So this was downtown. If you worked where I, live in the city and you commute downtown, if you were driving, it would be maybe about 15 minutes. And if you were busing from my neighborhood, it would probably be closer to a half hour. So you forgot your shirt. You're going to have gone all the way to the office. You get there. Your manager or supervisor is going to see that you don't have your shirt. You're going to refuse to pay $10. You're going to go all the way back. So if you are driving, there's gas money. If you're taking the bus, maybe your bus transfer works and you can go back home. So you've already now commuted 1 hour by bus. One way there, one way back. I've now put on my shirt. I'm going to leave the house and I'm going to go back downtown. At this point, I've eaten at least an hour and a half of my shift. Let's say 2 hours, because you either had to wait for the bus or you had to walk or whatever it was. 2 hours of your shift is gone. You're not getting paid for that because you were sent home to wear the stupid shirt that nobody's going to see. You're on the second or third floor, whatever it was, of this building downtown, and you're being forced to wear this uncomfortable shirt. So, and you can't have a grown-up cup. You had to have a sippy cup, like a kid. You definitely could not have your phone on the floor. There was one bathroom on the call center floor. The women's bathroom door always locked for some reason. I don't know if it was that people just locked it and closed the door or whatever, but there was a lineup for the bathrooms sometimes. And I think a big part of that was because you couldn't have your phone, so people would go in there to check their phone. That was kind of the catch, is like, oh, well, I'll just excuse myself. But it wasn't a bathroom that's got 4 stalls. It was a bathroom that had one toilet in it. So if it overflowed or if it whatever, and apparently, I never went into the women's washroom, but apparently the female staff would go and say, like, it stinks in there all the time, whatever people are doing in there. But you have to imagine, this is one toilet that at least, I mean, I didn't count how many people would be working on that floor, but let's say it was upwards of 50 people at any given time the men are using one toilet and the women are using another toilet. There were bathrooms on other floors, but you couldn't break away from your phone long enough to go and do that because you had to have a certain number of talk time or hours or whatever, in your shift. So you, like I said, and those mismatched chairs that I was talking about in the basement, that was basically the call center floor as well upstairs. So you have to wear this uncomfortable shirt. You can't have your phone out. You can't have just a glass of water. You're sharing a bathroom with all these disgusting people. You are being yelled at because your call just ended and you have 30 seconds before you've got to jump into another call. But they don't want you to take that full 30 seconds. It was called auto wrap time. So the system would give you a default time of 30 seconds from the time that the call disconnected to the time it gives you another call. So unless you change yourself into, can't remember what it was, like unavailable or something, it would shoot another call to you after 30 seconds. They didn't even want you taking 30 seconds. They wanted you to wrap it up within 10 seconds and boom, hit ready to take another call. That was how fast they wanted you going. Yep. Yeah. And again, these people were making minimum wage. So I was just kind of like, wow, that's crazy. Do I want to be a supervisor here? Yeah, because I don't want to deal with shit like that. Are you kidding? And this is one of those places where they reward you with like a coffee gift card and, you're going to play games. You can win a $5 coffee gift card. And again, I'm in my late 20s, maybe not quite early 30s, probably late 20s. And I just remember going, I'm not a kid. No, I'm not doing that. Ooh, a $5 Starbucks card? Yay, I'm going to play these games. And because those were incentives, right? If you got another donation or if you got this or whatever it was because you're fundraising for nonprofits. I just remember thinking, oh, that's great. I'm pulling in more money for them. Yay. I'm not getting any more money though. So what, there's no cash bonus for me. You got a $5 fucking gift card. Yay. What is that? Great. So I was a supervisor. I was able to yell at these people, yeah, wrap up that call. Hey, take your next call. Hey, what are you doing? You're unavailable. Hey, you've been offline for 3 minutes. Where were you? I was trying to take a pee. Get back to take another call. Yeah, there was a sense of power when I was able to do that as a supervisor, right? So I was there for a few months, and they were constantly... So this group that I was in at the very beginning, like I said, that first day, it was a round table of 8 or 10 people. I found out later that they were basically bringing in a new group of hires every week or two. That's how fast they were going through people. Okay, it's not that they were growing and we just need to keep hiring more people. The turnover was ridiculous. If you're having to hire, or if you're having to hire and do these orientation sessions every 2 weeks for 8 people or 10 people, that's saying something about your company. If people are just dropping off like flies. So what I found when I would have the schedule in front of me, I would come in I think I started at 10 o'clock. I would come in, I would look at the schedule. They would be in front of, on my desk. Like I said, I sat at the end of the row where that other person sat. And I would look and there would be the names highlighted because you'd have how many people calling in sick that day. On average, you'd have at least 2 people from your team calling in sick. Sometimes you'd even have 4. That's how much these people did not respect the job. And again, look at what they're being put through. And you had to punch in on this system. Now, the computers were so terrible that you could maybe come running in. You wouldn't even take off your jacket. You couldn't have your coats on the floor either, by the way. That was another thing. Yeah, you couldn't have your coat on the back of your chair. Couldn't be. It had to be downstairs in a staff room in a coat rack. Yeah, couldn't keep your possessions with you. There were lockers that they would give you, but you couldn't really fit very much in it. So, I'd come in and be like, oh my God, 4 people calling in sick. So it's going to slam the call center. The agents aren't going to get their breaks on time. You're going to have to work them like a dog because they've got to pick up the slack for the other people. But again, I was a supervisor. So I was just like, whatever, it's not my problem. I don't have to, The odd time, though, if there was a backup, if there was a queue of calls, sometimes you'd be expected to sort of put on the headset and, be an agent. But I did everything I could to avoid that. I would, go around the room or pretend like I was helping people just so that it didn't look like I wasn't doing anything. You do kind of feel a little bit bad sometimes where you're just sitting there playing on your computer, pretending you're doing stuff, and you see that there's 37 calls waiting and everybody's just kind of hanging, they're sweating and, you're yelling at them, wrap it up. And they're like, what the fuck are you doing, asshole? So after doing this for a few months, I then became a trainer. And let me tell you, that is when the real fun for management began and the real tears for employees began. That story on the Scribble right after this.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
Jeremy Bradley here on The Scribble, talking about my call center adventure. I gotta tell you now, when I think about how these people work from home, like how the industry has just totally shifted, right? Where you just basically sit with your laptop and the calls are all put through on your computer or whatever. I might be able to tolerate that. But again, customer service, that would be like, I have no interest in somebody yelling at me all day. Now, these are donors, so it's a different environment than tech support where people are pissed off about the service, right? These are people who are giving to a charity, so the calls were, a little bit nicer. But definitely working in the call center. So after being in, the carpet-stained room with the smelly bathrooms, the locked doors, the headsets. You also shared headsets, by the way. So you didn't get your own headset. You had to, there was like a Lysol or like a a spray thing that you could do. But basically you'd hang up the headset. And yeah, half of them didn't work. The cords were all tangled up and you're just like, oh my God. So I was asked, because I was a supervisor, then turned manager, I was asked to do a training class. So I'd known the account that I was working on quite well, obviously. And so I was like, all right, so what do you guys want me to do? Well, do you remember that week that you did the training? And I said, yeah, like the 5 days in the dummy room, in the basement, the dungeon. They said, yeah, so basically that exact same thing. You're going to do the role playing, you're going to explain the computer system, give them the ins and outs of the organization, all that kind of stuff. And I said, okay, cool. Then they told me the really interesting behind the scenes information. They hire 8 people on average. It could be 10, could be 6, depending on how many applicants they get. And again, they're banking on people new to the country needing the work. We're going to hire 8 people. We only need you to keep 6, though. So by the end of the week, they bank on people dropping out or doing it American Idol style, where you basically go and say, well, these 2 people don't cut it, so, cut them loose, get rid of them. Think about that. You're hired for the job. Maybe it's told to you that it is a call center. Maybe it's transparent enough that you understand what you're doing. It certainly wasn't for me, and I'm a very smart person. And I think maybe that's why they tried to snow me like that, right? They didn't want to be level with me and say, you're going to be taking calls. No, it's a PR job, and it's, ugh. So I said, okay, so you're bringing in 8, but what is it? But you've hired them. So you've hired them for a job, and you're hiring them to fire them within the first few days. I'd never heard of something like that before. It just, that was a new concept for me. So I was kind of like, all right, okay. So I, on day 1, like I said, they do the orientation, whatever. So I wasn't with them in the morning, and then they walk through the call center. So I kind of showed them around. And then in the afternoon is when I sit with them and kind of go, all right, well, here's the thing. Here's our computer system. I'll walk you through basically the screens, that we'll be clicking around for the next week. And so it was very light that first day. But that very first afternoon, I had to do a debrief at 4:30, whatever the hell time it was, every day with the management upstairs, and then the actual supervisor, like the account manager, I guess you'd call her. And so I got bumped up to her role, and then she, went up, right? So I took her supervisor. So, okay. So I had to meet with them, and they, were basically going through the list of the people. And I said, I only spent a few hours with them, and they really didn't get to, it's me just talking and me showing on a projection screen, the different screens and clicking around. They haven't really done anything. I kind of talked to them a little bit, but I don't have a fair assessment as to who's good and who's not. I don't really know. Oh, wait, well, by Wednesday, we need it down to at least 6 people. And I said, okay. I didn't, who would think that that's how you hire and build your workforce? We're going to hire 10. We're only going to keep 5, though. So, because I would feel shitty. Think about that. This is going to be maybe you're supporting your husband or your wife or your kids or your grandparents or something. And you go home after that job interview and go, oh my God, I got a job. I start on Monday. And then by Tuesday afternoon, you're going to come in and go, I was let go. That's slimy. That's just so gross. But I was making really good money, and so I kind of thought, there's a bit of a power trip to it as well, and, got good money. And so the second day you come in, and again, they're in this god-awful, stank, dirty training room where, again, the chairs are half broken, the, computers are all nasty, and they have to, use a sippy cup, and they have to, just, ugh. So we start to do role playing. So I've explained the account to them, and it's like, okay, so now you're going to be clicking on the screen, you're going to be walking through the different steps. And as the day goes on, we're going to start to do some role playing. So I'm going to be the caller who's calling in to make a donation. You're going to be the call taker, as you are in this role. And so walk me through. I'm going to make a $50 donation. You're going to ask me for my name. You're going to kind of go through the steps. And I was told very quickly to ramp it up. And if they stop talking and there's dead air, I'm supposed to start going, hello, are you there? Okay, I didn't hear you. You weren't saying anything. Oh, I just wasn't sure if we were disconnected. You were expecting them to fill the time, vamp as they're looking for information on a screen, as they're trying to bring up somebody's account. As the caller, I'm asking them a bunch of other questions as well. So I'm distracting them from really what I'm calling in about. I'm calling to make a donation, but I'm asking more about, what year were you guys founded? What was the guy's name again? Who started the organization? And I'm totally, throwing them off. And then you're penalizing them because they're getting lost, they're getting flustered, and they're, So this is now, let's say, Tuesday afternoon. They've had lunch, whatever. And there were some times, because I ended up doing a bunch of these training classes through the months and whatever, that some people just wouldn't even come back after lunch. Yeah. They would just, it's Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday afternoon, and it's like, oh, they just didn't come back. All right, well, we were down 1, so we're good. Now we don't have to cut 1 at the end of the day today. Good. She cut herself. She's done. And that's how you're looking at this, though. Like, that's just so fucked up. So it's now, we finished Tuesday. I go for my debrief on Tuesday afternoon. The account manager is kind of giving me her rundown as to who she likes and doesn't like. And I said, well, no, this person's got potential and this one's okay, but we got to cut one more by Wednesday. So, and then we figured out this way of doing it where I would signal to the HR person who's going to be the fire. Or she would come to me and she'd be like, oh. And so I was basically told, like, this was outside of the training session. The HR woman would say, okay, I'll come in at about like 2:30. I'm going to come in, ask how everybody's doing. The first person that you mention is the one that you want cut. So let's say her name is Jenny. So HR comes in, oh, how's it going, everybody? Great. And so she'll look at me and I'm like, oh, great, yeah. I said, everybody's doing great. How's it going for you, Jenny? And Jenny would say, oh, okay, great. So we have a couple minutes of chit chat. And then at about, close to the end of the day, HR would come in and would say, oh, Jenny, can you just come with me? Yeah, just come with me. Because remember, you're not allowed to have your coats or anything with you on the floor, right? So it's not like she had to collect her belongings or whatever. It was just kind of, just come with me. And so Jenny would be gone. So when the group would come in the next morning, it would be like, oh, who's missing? Like, Jenny's missing. Where's Jenny? I would always play dumb and be like, yeah, I don't know. I just, I just do the training. I don't do the HR kind of a thing, whatever. Meanwhile, I had to come up with, a name of who to fire that day, and it was Jenny. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that scummy? That is so fucking slimy. And then, after doing this for a while, the account manager ended up really liking my style because I ended up kind of being a ball buster. Like, I was a good role player. I was really, into it. Now, again, the actual calls that you would get to people who were, donating money to a charity, they were not this aggressive. They were not this, assholey. It was significantly different. But again, I guess the idea was, toughen them up so that they can handle anything on the phones, which was sort of the mentality. So it's now, Wednesday morning and Jenny's gone. And so, we're going through training or whatever, and then we ramp it up, and you're kind of always building on training, right? So you're going, hey, this is what we're doing today. The next step is this one. Then the next step is this one. And then by the end of the week, it's great. Now you're going to be, you're hitting the call center floor where we're going to monitor your time. You won't be able to punch in on time. And if you punch in 2 seconds late, that'll be flagged in the system. So you're going to be probably written up for that as well. It was just, oh, by the way, yeah, you have to wear these god awful shirts. And if you forget it and, you had to do, 60 calls a day. You had to have, they would have, as a supervisor, I would have to review calls and then go through a checklist. Now remember, it's for a charity. So even maybe you got a $100 donation out of them. Well, you still didn't thank them for calling, so you lost 10 points on that one. And it was just like, this is so fucking ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. But in the moment, I was totally game for it. So it's Wednesday morning. Now we're doing our next day of training. We bring in a couple of the actual call center employees to kind of role play with them. And then that's when you really ramp it up and you just get into that aggressive and you start being combative as the caller. And I'm not kidding you. The account manager would say to me on breaks or lunch, whatever, I think Barbara is going to be our crier. She would start to say that at the beginning of the week or what, or some after spending some time. I think Barbara's going to be our crier in this group. Isn't that sick? Isn't that so fucking twisted? You have a manager who's sitting there going, make her cry. Yeah, she's going to be the crier. That'll be a good one. Yeah, get her to cry. I think we can make her cry. But not saying that, but saying that, right? And I just thought, this is so fucking ridiculous. But again, it was good money, and you're in a supervisor power role. You're not a lowly call center employee. Go for it. Go for it. This is fucking awesome. It was a game. And again, you think about it now, go, wow, that was really shitty for to do that to these people. And then there would always be the one person who was kind of the know-it-all. They had worked in a bunch of call centers before. So there was a part of me that actually kind of liked throwing them off and making them frazzled because they would be like, oh, I've done this and that. Oh, yeah, this computer system. Oh, yeah, I've done this. Oh, I know this. And sometimes they would actually be the crier. It's weird to talk like that, isn't it? But yeah, that was what we would do. So Wednesday afternoon comes around and we've got to cut. If I'm not, I was told if you're not cutting one today, it's got to be Thursday. We only need 5 from this group. So you've got to lose 3 from this group. Gotta lose 3. So, get a crier to bounce, get somebody to not come back after lunch. We're good. So Wednesday afternoon comes around. I'm just kind of like, I think that these people are really, I think they're okay. And essentially I was told, well, you got to cut 2 tomorrow then. You have to get, they wouldn't fire or let them go on a Friday. They at least had some dignity or humanity. So it had to be by the end of Thursday afternoon. And so the pressure's on me, as though I'm going to get in trouble. Well, fuck if I'm going to get in trouble for these people. I'll cut 2. I just, oh my God. It's so ridiculous. And, and I think about it going, I went through that training program. I was put through. Was I ever on the radar or be like, oh, we got to cut this guy. Oh, he's not that's how they were talking about people. That's how, it wasn't like, hey, we're going to coach you and we're going to help you grow into this role or we're going to give you time and whatever. It was like, no, you either get it or you don't, or you're fucking out of here. Yeah, really. So Wednesday afternoon, if I didn't cut somebody, now it's Thursday and then the pressure's on me because this is the last day to make a cut. And so we would get into the role playing, it would be aggressive, and they would go upstairs to the call center to listen, they would connect with the calls, with the current agents to listen to, how actual calls go and things like that. And so that was when I had some time to kind of go back to management and we'd sit and talk and I'd say, okay, well, I guess these are the 2 then that we're going to have to lose, Thursday afternoon. That's fine. Can I give this person one more day just to kind of, I think she's good or I think he's good, but, And so then Thursday was sort of D-Day, right? And what's weird about it, though, is that the people are getting confidence. The more that they're hands-on, the more that, okay, they just had this chance to actually listen to the way that the other agents do it, and they've heard the real calls, and they're hearing in real time how it goes. They're like, yeah, I can do this. It's great. And they've got no fucking idea that 2 of you have a bullseye on you because you're not making it to tomorrow. Yeah, that's how it would go. It was just, it was so fucking bizarre. It was just crazy to do that. And so, we'd have our crier, we'd have this, we'd have that, and I would always just play dumb and go, I don't know what happened. Yeah, that's an HR question. I don't really know. Maybe there was a family thing. I don't know what happened. Like I said, this was before kind of big time social media, so I don't know that people were kind of already swapping contact information and whatever at the time. But yeah, that was, you've got them sort of bonding with each other and kind of getting excited because, again, it's a new job, right? It's supposed to be exciting. And meanwhile, this is what's going on behind the scenes. It was just crazy. It was crazy for them to be treated that way. Now, again, because Jocelyn loves me and I'm set at this place, and they liked that I was a good role player and things like that, and I was aggressive, and I was a manager for then a little while, and I just kind of thought, I'm moving up this company, and this is a pretty small company. So then they told me we're going to be starting this new campaign. It's got nothing to do with the call center. It's actually completely different. We're kind of doing this offshoot of the company, but in the realm of nonprofit organizations. You're a writer and blah, 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 communications, we want you to be part of this thing. And I said, are you taking me out of the call center finally? I don't remember how long I worked there. Maybe a few months, several months. And they said, yeah, we want you to move upstairs. It's a small office, but it's an office. And I said, oh my God, going upstairs? In this place, if you were going to be moving up, the upstairs, like I said, the call center, like I said, was, stained floors, chairs broken, headsets broken, nastiness, fans blowing because it was so hot there. Freezing in the basement, call center was sweltering because there were so many people. And so I had gone upstairs a couple times for meetings as a manager. Hardwood floors, track lighting, a little kitchen, beautiful boardroom. It was like night and day. Night and fucking day. So if you've got an opportunity to move up there, wouldn't you? I mean, come on. So I said, well, what am I going to be doing? And they said, we want you to be doing the social media for it. They're explaining kind of what they're going to be doing, whatever. You'll come up with our content, write some blogs. But I said, this is what I do. Thank you. It only took a few months or whatever. I had a great time crushing people's feelings and emotions, making them feel hopeless in their new country of residency. But I was getting more money and more money and more money. So then they said, but we still want you to we don't want you to work on the call center, but I was producing this monthly donor recap thing for the actual clients. We want you to do that, but you're not going to be technically a call center employee anymore. You're going to be part of our corporate structure. But we've got to bill it to the clients. So you kind of have to work for the call center, but you're not going to be a call center agent. And we're going to do it as a contract. And I said, so what does that mean? So we're going to have you do the monthly newsletter for these different clients at $50 an hour. And like I said, this is going back, like 15 years or whatever it was. $50 an hour to do what I was kind of already doing at the call center. I wasn't making that much money. But, so I'm going to be making more than a supervisor would make. Now, granted, it's not full-time. It's just going to be per hour, right? Because it doesn't take that long to do it. But they don't know how long it was taking to write it, so I could milk that shit, right? And so I kind of thought, all right, so I'm going to have like 2 jobs here. I'm going to have this corporate job, which was really good money, in the nice office upstairs. And I can still kind of keep in touch with the people that I sort of developed friendships with downstairs and do that. And I thought, this is great. Like, I'm working it at this company. Jocelyn loves me. I'm set. Jocelyn did love me. I was set. It was good to go. And so they were launching this campaign. They were doing this thing. It really didn't kind of go anywhere. But I was always treated, though, like the call center employee who's upstairs now. So it was almost like I'm working with adults, but I'm the kid still. I don't know how old everybody was, but like I said, the owners, I met their kids. The kids were late teens, maybe early 20s. So I don't know. The owners were probably in their 50s, and I was almost 30, I guess, at the time. So but still, like, I wasn't much older, or wasn't much younger than most of the people there, maybe 10 years, but I was still treated like I was a call center employee. They did not treat me like I was a business person. Like I said, I was doing the radio thing. I was kind of getting my stuff off the ground at that point. And so that is, I think, why I left, was I started to, my company and my business started to take off. And so I just left. Like I said, I wasn't fired. They ended up shutting down that project that I was brought in to do the social media and everything for. And so, that's what it was. They shut that down. They wanted me to go back down to the call center and take on a bigger manager role at the call center. And it wouldn't have been a pay cut. It would have been the same. But I just kind of said, once I've had that taste of doing the corporate thing, I don't want to go back down to the call center. And so I ended up leaving. But just, you look at how the people were treated there. Like I said, the break schedule was ridiculous. You had to, your breaks would be taken away or moved because it was busy. You'd have constantly people calling in sick. You'd have people just not showing up for their shift. They would just, I guess they're just not coming in again. All right, well. And, you kind of go, well, but look at how they were treated. Why would they come back? Would you come back? Would I have the decency to go and say to HR, I think I'm actually going to give my notice. I think I'm just not. No, you just, screw you guys. I'm not coming back after lunch. Whatever, fuck it. And I'd heard that several times people would just not come back. They'd just leave mid-shift. I've worked in many places. I have never had that where somebody just doesn't come back after lunch, goes for coffee, doesn't come back. But really, that's what it was. It was ridiculous. You're in this sweltering room with all these people. You can't have your personal belongings with you. You can't drink out of a cup. You've got to wear these uncomfortable shirts. You're going to go in a bathroom that's, you're sharing with 25 other people, depending on your gender. It's, yeah, I was thinking about it going, wow. I would never have been able to survive if I was just like a call taker the entire time. Like I said, after like 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it was, I was just kind of like, get me out of here. I'm not fucking doing this. Put me somewhere else because I'm not. We'll make you a trainer. How do you feel about making people cry? Love it. Let's do it. But yeah, I mean, like I said, once you're removed from that, like I can realize that now and go, that is not how you treat people. That is not how you, but yikes. Yeah. I laugh about it now, but by the way, let me actually just preface or wrap this up by saying that company is no longer in business. They actually, the call center, everything is gone now. Good thing, right? But so when I was on the plane, now in the last show, I was talking about how one of the managers from upstairs, she had texted me while I was on vacation with my husband the other day. So when we were flying back, I was on the plane, and you got time to kill, so I'm on my phone, and so I looked her up, and then I looked up the actual owner, and then I looked up the company that none of them were at the company anymore. The husband and wife sold it, and it was to a different place now, and then so it ended up closing up the call center building and everything, and I don't know if it was bought out and then just moved somewhere else, but the building that we worked in and the company as it was known by whatever name was no more, or is no more. And so I just go, you know what, different management, different owners, perfect. Hopefully people aren't treated like that anymore. But it was ridiculous. It was so crazy. I mean, you just sit there and go, the goal is to make people quit? And that would be the good thing, right? You'd make them want to go and say, you know what, I'm not cut out for this, so I'll remove myself from the training class. But I mean, who thinks I got a job and the actual employer is sitting there going, we don't want them to make it to day 4. Yeah, so hopefully they quit by the 3rd day so we don't have to do it. Like, I don't know. So, have you ever been in a situation like that? Have you ever had a workplace where, you hear about that all the time, right? My manager's a dick, my supervisor's an asshole, whatever. If you've ever been in management, have you been in a situation where you've been told to treat people like that? Sometimes it's just your personality that ends up treating people like that, right? But this almost seemed like it was the company, it was part of the handbook. Management, you need to treat people like this. You need to make them cry. You need to make them feel insecure about the role. We need them to cut themselves from the roster. We're going to hire 10, but we don't need that many because we're banking on people leaving or you firing half of them. I don't know. Send me an email live at jbonair.com, live at jbonair.com. We're out of time. We got to go. What a long story, but I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to give me a shout anytime. It's always awesome hearing from you. I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com. Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.